What's up, quarterback fans, college football fans? Welcome to another QB Spotlight video. And today we're talking about Florida versus Utah. We're doing our first game preview of the 2023 season. And our game previews are a little bit different than other game previews, right? We don't talk about every position. We don't talk about every factor going on. We just talk about the quarterback position, right? Hence QB Spotlight, right? So we're going to dive into the quarterbacks, what each quarterback needs to do to have success. And today we're talking about Florida versus Utah. So we're going to hit on some Graham Mertz talk. Then we're going to hit on some Utah Utes talk and what their quarterbacks need to do. And we'll go into that quarterback situation as well. But as always, if this is your first time watching QB Spotlight channel, we thank you for tuning in. This is a place that we put out quarterback content on a weekly basis, with podcasts, with quarterback interviews from current and former quarterbacks to coaches to trainers. Just anything related to the quarterback position is fair game here. It's a big quarterback hub. And with the season starting, we're going to start having 3, 4, 5 previews or quarterback previews each week with several live shows as well, right? So hope you tune in. If you like this quarterback content, please consider subscribing. But today, we're just talking about what each quarterback needs to do to have success, right, against this defense. So I want to talk about Florida quarterback first, Graham Mertz, then we'll get into Utah, right? So I think it's important when talking about Graham Mertz and talking about what Florida needs to do against Utah's defense is to go over Utah's defense as a whole, right? To go over what Utah's defense brings to the table, to go over what Utah's defense is going to be playing or how they're going to be playing against this Florida offense, right? If you look at the game last year, Utah's defense did a fairly decent job against Florida. The only reason, at least in my opinion, that Florida was able to win is because they had Anthony Richardson. Utah did not, right? Anthony Richardson was the best athlete on the field. He didn't have any throwing or passing touchdowns. He threw for under 200 yards, but he was efficient, and he ran for over 100 yards and had 3 touchdowns on the ground. Utah just couldn't contain him. He was just the best athlete by far on the field. This season, this case, that's a much different situation. Florida's going to find a way to beat Utah without having the best athlete at the quarterback position. Now they got Graham Mertz, right? So let's talk about Utah's defense. They are ranked number 1 in the Pac-12 in most major categories: sacks, yards per game, points. All the categories that really are meaningful. They also had 12 interceptions? Yeah, 12 interceptions last year. So they are number 1 in the defense in the Pac-12. In sacks, all these major categories, and they had 12 interceptions last year, right? They are also returning 75% of their production on defense. So that tells us that they didn't lose a lot of the players that led Utah's defense last year. They have a lot of that returning production back. So they're probably going to be pretty damn good and probably have a similar defense what they had last year. So if you're Graham Mertz, few things come to mind for you to have success against Utah. Not that he's watching this or would want to take advice from a channel that has a couple thousand subscribers. But from the outside looking in, here's my thoughts with Mertz and what you have to do to have success. Number 1, you got to take care of the football. That's obvious. If you watched this channel before, you've watched anyone talking about Mertz before, you've heard about the interception and the turnover issues that he's had, right? I think 26 interceptions in 3 years starting. One of those was COVID year, right? So not even full 3 seasons. He said 26 interceptions. You got to take care of the ball. If you take care of the ball, you're probably going to be in a good position to win in the fourth quarter. The ball needs to be spread out as well. That's number 2. If you can spread the ball out, you have to find ways to keep Utah's defense honest, right? Florida's going to have a good running game. I think you have to rely on the run game if you're Florida to win this game. But you have to spread the ball out as well. You can't have Utah's defense just honing in on one area of the offense, and that being the run game, right? So if you're Graham Mertz, spread the ball out. Get the ball out quickly. Another thing, that the third kind of final thing I think you need to do if you're Graham Mertz to set up success is take some deep shots early in the game, even if you don't complete it. I don't think they have to necessarily be these like super well thought out plays. Just throw a go ball, like a safe conservative throw where either your guy catches it or no one catches it. That's at least going to put the option of taking a shot deep in the back of Utah's defense's mind, right? So you want that option there. You want to do anything you can possibly do to set up the run game, to open up the run game. Then once the run game gets going a little bit, if it can get going a little bit, that's when you have some play action. That's when you have Mertz being able to hopefully push the ball downfield a bit more, right? So I think it sounds simple, but most of the time football is simple. We overcomplicate things. If you're Mertz, you take care of the football. How do you take care of the football? Well, you spread the ball out, get the ball out quickly, trust your reads, and then I think early in the game, take a deep shot or two, a safe one, a conservative one. Even if you don't complete it, it's going to get Utah's defense hopefully off from honing in on the run game. You don't want Utah stacking the box, right? So overall takeaway, I think if you're Graham Mertz and you're playing this Utah defense, if you don't force the ball, if you hold on the ball and you don't turn the ball over, I think you're going to be in a really, really good position to win in the fourth quarter. that could be said for most any teams, right? But especially in this game going forward, right? You have to find ways to win differently than how you won last year against Utah now that you have a different quarterback, right? So I think Graham Mertz, we talked about this before, I think Mertz is actually going to be a decent quarterback for Florida, or better than decent. I don't think he's going to, he got a lot of criticism last year at Wisconsin, I understand, but I think in this Napier offense, and I'm more of an optimist, but I think he's going to have a good season. So I anticipate a good game from Mertz against Utah, and these are kind of a few keys that I feel like would be beneficial that he needs to do to have a good game. So that's Florida quarterback Graham Mertz, right? Let's move on to Utah. Let's move on to the quarterback position for Utah, right? The big topic, maybe the biggest topic on the whole game is Cam Rising playing. Last time I saw, he's been number one on the depth chart, but that's not necessarily for the game. It's more for the 2023 season. So I still think it's kind of up in the air, at least as this video is being released or recorded. It's up in the air if Cam Rising is starting and playing or not, right? I don't know if we're going to find out before the game, right as the game starts. We'll see. Let's just go into the impression. Let's go over a few different scenarios. If Cam Rising does play, I think he's going to have to adjust his style of play. Last year against Florida, he had 91 yards on the ground. That was his most rushing yards in a game all of last year. I don't know if that's realistic when you're coming back from a knee injury, right? So I think you have to adjust your style of play. He had 465 yards on the ground last year in general. I think 6 touchdowns on the ground. I have it written down somewhere. But I think now it's just a different story. He has to adjust his style of play if he's going to have success against Florida's defense, right? And last year he didn't get sacked once. A lot of that was because he was able to escape with his legs. So now, you have to try to replicate what you did last year without probably all the running plays that he had. Get the ball out quick, right? Don't let the defense get in your face, right? Get the ball out quick. Try to avoid any unnecessary hits. That's if Cam Rising is playing, right? Find a way to win in a different way than you did last year, kind of similar to what Florida did. So Cam Rising, is he going to play? I hope so. You pull for obviously you want him to come back and be healthy, but if he doesn't play, who's going to play after him? Who's the backup? And if you look into what Kyle Whittingham's been saying, I don't know if he's named a backup as of yet. If you know who would play, there's two though, right? There's Bryson Barnes and Nate Johnson. Bryson Barnes was the backup last year. He got playing time last year, and Cam Rising got hurt. And he's had some meaningful snaps. He's not as athletic as Cam Rising. He's not going to be able to move around as much, but he's still able to use his legs when need be. He's still able to be a threat when he needs to be, right? He's not a statue back there. He did have 4 touchdowns passing last year, so even though he's a different type of quarterback than Rising, there's still some similarities. You still have to prepare for him in a certain way. The wild card here is Nate Johnson. He only had 1 attempt last year passing, and it was a touchdown. However, he did have 2 touchdowns on the ground, and he is a quarterback that can fly. He had a 10.56 100-meter dash in high school, which is absolutely flying if you're not familiar with track times, right? So he's a quarterback that can fly. So you have 3 different scenarios if you're Florida's defense on what you have to defend, right, of what Utah could potentially do against you. So even though Barnes was the main backup last year, depending, how the coaching staff at Utah views Florida's defense, they're not going to pick Barnes just because he was the guy last year. If Nate Johnson gives them a better chance or better opportunity to beat Florida's defense because he can run a bit more, then they'll go with him, right? Or they go a two quarterback approach. Who knows, right? But there's a bunch of different scenarios with Florida's defense you have to prepare for. The overall takeaway is Utah's offense is going to be a totally different offense depending on who plays. If it's Cam Rising, and again, maybe I'm wrong, but if it's Cam Rising, I can't imagine a lot of quarterback runs, right? I'm not saying they're going to just have him sit in the pocket, because that could be just as detrimental as running. You don't want to think about the injury when you're a player, right? But still, I can't imagine it being the same offense if you have Cam Rising, Bryson Barnes, or Nate Johnson. I think it's going to be different depending who they have, right? So super interesting who's going to be the starting quarterback for Utah against Florida. But again, I think the offense will largely depend on who is the quarterback for Utah. So college football fans, quarterback fans, or if you're just a Utah, Florida fan, let me know your thoughts. I want to hear from you, Florida fans. What do you think Mertz has to do against Utah's defense? And Utah fans, what do you think the quarterback has to do, or who do you think the quarterback will be against Florida's defense? Let us know in the comments below. And again, if you like this type of quarterback content, this type of quarterback preview, give us a like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. It does help. We'll have live shows. We're still going to have our guests on throughout the season. They just might not be the current players, maybe some former guys that we'll have on. But anyways, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We'll see you next time. Have a good Thursday night of watching this game. We'll see you next time. Peace.